Article of the day, NYTA1, Republican Shadow Campaign for 2020 takes shape as Trump doubts grow, by Jonathan Martin and Alex Burns. Print headline: President aside, GOP stars move toward 2020 bids. Senators Tom Cotton and Ben Sasse have already been to Iowa this year. Gov. John Kasich is eyeing a return visit to New Hampshire, and Mike Pence's schedule is so full of political events that Republicans joke that he is acting more like a second-term vice president hoping to clear the field than a number two sworn in a little over 6 months ago. President Trump's first term is ostensibly just warming up, but luminaries in his own party have begun what amounts to a shadow campaign for 2020, as if the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue weren't involved. The would-be candidates are cultivating some of the party's most prominent donors, courting conservative interest groups and carefully enhancing their profiles. Mr. Trump has given no indication that he will decline to seek a second term. But the sheer disarray surrounding this presidency, the intensifying investigation by the special counsel Robert S. Mueller III, and the plain uncertainty about what Mr. Trump will do in the next week, let alone in the next election, have prompted Republican officeholders to take political steps unheard of so soon into a new administration. But in interviews with more than 75 Republicans at every level of the party, elected officials, donors and strategists expressed widespread uncertainty about whether Mr. Trump would be on the ballot in 2020, and little doubt that others in the party are engaged in barely veiled contingency planning. Mr. Pence has made no overt efforts to separate himself from the beleaguered president. He has kept up his relentless public praise and even in private is careful to bow to the president. Mr. Pence's aides, however, have been less restrained in private, according to two people briefed on the conversations. Story continued below. In a June meeting with Al Hubbard, an Indiana Republican who was a top economic official in Mr. Bush's White House, an aide to the vice president, Marty Obst, said that they wanted to be prepared to run in case there was an opening in 2020 and that Mr. Pence would need Mr. Hubbard's help, according to a Republican briefed on the meeting. Reached on the phone, Mr. Hubbard declined to comment. Mr. Ez has signaled to multiple major Republican donors that Mr. Pence wants to be ready. Mr. Obst denied that he and Mr. Ez had made any private insinuations and called suggestions that the vice president was positioning himself for 2020 beyond ridiculous. Nikki Haley, the ambassador to the United Nations and a former governor of South Carolina, put her longtime pollster on the payroll, has gotten better acquainted with some of New York's financiers and carved out a far more muscular foreign policy niche than Mr. Trump. "She sounds more like me than Trump," said Senator Lindsey Graham, a hawkish Republican from South Carolina. http://ns2vc1ckkvp Mike Pence responds: Today's article in the New York Times is disgraceful and offensive to me, my family, and our entire team. The allegations in this article are categorically false and represent just the latest attempt by the media to divide this administration. Thanks to the president's leadership, we are rebuilding the military, ISIS is on the run, and we've seen more than 1 million jobs created while the stock market hits all-time highs. The American people know that I could not be more honored to be working side by side with a president who is making America great again. Whatever fake news may come our way, my entire team will continue to focus all our efforts to advance the president's agenda and see him re-elected in 2020. Have a suggestion otherwise is both laughable and absurd. Kellyanne Conway talking with George Stephanopoulos on ABC's This Week about whether Pence is setting up a shadow campaign that is complete fiction. That is complete fabrication. And I know that his advisors who had comments attributed to them have pushed back strongly, as has the vice president. And as am I right now unequivocally. Vice President Pence is a very loyal, very dutiful, but also incredibly effective vice president, and active vice president, with this president. He is a peer to the president in the West Wing. But let me make very clear, people meet Republican consultants, as always people trying to play the parlor game, they're not on the "they're in the eye" would say Trump inside in a circle because they did not believe in him. They totally missed what was happening in America. I would tell my Republican brethren, get on board. Help us with tax reform and a health reform and stop looking at 2020. Also in JMART and Alex's story in the wider world of conservative Trump opponents, William Kristol, editor-at-large of the Weekly Standard, said he had begun informal conversations about creating a committee not to re-nominate the president. Kristol told us this morning that the proposed name is a dig at Trump being like Nixon in his opinion. He also said he hasn't set up the group yet, but so far only talked about doing so with people you'd expect in GOP anti-Trump circles. From KRISTOL's weekly newsletter, Crystal Clear. Last Monday Mike Murphy and I had lunch Friday at a suitably obscure Chinese restaurant in an LA strip mall, her Sichuan restaurant, where we ended up in a long session, plotting the salvation of the GOP and conservatism from Donald Trump. We'll see whether anything comes of it.